Town. The most famous goal of Chris Billy's life.
Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
Champion Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted.
Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Hello, welcome back to the next part of the 2024-25 season preview. And this time I've been joined by TTC regulars Ian Kilroy-Silk and Jonny Gillespie. Are we okay, boys?
Very good, thank you.
Excellent.
Yep.
So as Killer does his best monkey impression, if you're watching on YouTube there, he's scratching his head. We're going to move on to more technical matters now. So we are going to look into sort of a little bit of a tactical waffle about how we think Huddersfield Town will play next season and the sort of style and different nuances within how we may line up and things maybe to look out for as well. I've basically ripped this idea off from the bloke who did the 4-4-2 tactical stuff on England during the summer, and that was really good. This will be crap in comparison, but we'll give it our best shot. Right, so if you're watching on YouTube, this will be a lot clearer because we're going to use a couple of different visual aids for this. If you're listening to the podcast, we will try and explain as best as possible what we are trying to sort of the point we're trying to get across. But just bear in mind that this is done for the benefit of both sets of listeners. Right, guys, so let us look at Huddersfield Town, how we think they're going to line up. So all the way through pre-season, so if you're watching on YouTube, you will now see in a second that we will get a nice little coaching manual diagram of a football pitch and how we may think Huddersfield Town will line up. Okay, so for those that are watching on YouTube, the blue characters here are Huddersfield, and then the red is just a standard League One team. Most teams tend to line up as a 4-3-3 in League One. Back when we were in here before, it was mostly 4-4-2, wasn't it? But now it is essentially 4-3-3, much to the disappointment of Mr. Kilroy over there, who is very much a Mike Bassett man of 4-4-2. Right, guys, so let's look through the Huddersfield Town team. So we might as well start with the goalkeeper. So we're going to do a little bit of squad analysis and how we may think will function together. So goalkeepers first. Town have got quite a simple job, really, haven't they, in terms of goalkeeping? The problem with the transfer window closing on the 30th of August is that when you do a season preview, you don't fully know who is going to be here by the end of the window. So everything we see now could possibly change based on different players coming in and different players going out. How we think it will go is that we currently have three goalkeepers for this position. So we've got first choice at the moment will be Lee Nicholls. Lee Nicholls put in a fabulous performance against Sheffield United recently. So if he continues to do that, then there's going to be no better goalkeeper in League One than Lee Nicholls in terms of shot stopping and command of his box. We've got Chris Maxwell as well. Chris Maxwell is the kind of goalkeeper who has been a number one at this level for quite a long period at Blackpool. He was number one at Preston in the championship as well. And we've also got Jacob Chapman as well coming up on the a couple of decent performances last season as well. Some people may remember the Middlesbrough game. I think where he saved the penalty against, I think it was Middlesbrough, wasn't it? And then they scored from the corner straight after, just kickers in the knackers like that season did time and time again. So in terms of goalkeepers, we seem quite well covered there. I guess mainly the issue really is the future of Lee Nicholls. Lee Nicholls is under contract for a little bit longer as well, so there's no sort of rush to get him out. I think the main thing about Lee Nicholls really is that he's a good championship level goalkeeper, so there may be interest coming from elsewhere. A couple of clubs that were maybe mentioned were Swansea, but Swansea seem to have gone for Vigouroux, and then Sheffield United, but Sheffield United seem okay as well in that department as well. Lee Nichols was subject of some interest from Luton when they got promoted to the Premier League, but they seem okay in what they've got as well at the moment. So I find it difficult to see where Lee Nichols could go, if I'm honest. Swansea seem to be maybe the ones who were looking for a first-team goalkeeper. I think Coventry haven't quite fixed their goalkeeping situation, so maybe they may look at that. I wouldn't have thought Lee Nichols would be interested in going anywhere whereby he would be potentially a number 2. So really his options are quite limited, whereby he's going to want to go somewhere and be number 1. His footwork as a goalkeeper with his passing from the back isn't a strength of his. So it's unlikely that Swansea would have identified him as the person that they want, especially from someone who liked to play out from the back. And they had Carl Rushworth last season, Town's former youth keeper, who was, when we played Swansea, the best passer on the park, unfortunately. And he was the goalkeeper, and he passed better than any of our midfielders on the day, which was incredibly depressing. But for me, Town's goalkeeping unit at the minute, very, very good. You've got Nichols. I presume Maxwell would be the, if Nichols stays, I presume Maxwell will be the cup goalkeeper, whereby you would play him in the maybe the Bristol Street Motors and the League Cup and maybe the FA Cup. But otherwise, he's going to become quite unhappy, which then lends into what do you do with Jacob Chapman as well? Because Jacob Chapman's now at the age where he's probably going to start needing to play games to improve himself. So it's a strong department, would you say, Killer, here? I don't think, as a fan, you really want to see any change here, do you? And there's not going to be anything spectacular either with all 3 of them. I think Chapman's slightly the better keeper with it at his feet, potentially. Anything particularly spectacular in terms of ball at the feet. They all do as it says on the tin. They're all quite solid. But Lee Nichols is obviously the best one of the 3, you would say.
Yeah, it's just a bit strange what happened with Nichols at the end of last year, isn't it? Coming on to now, like, was he going to stay? Was he going to go? It was a little bit up in the air. There was quite a few things said that he might not play for Town again. Obviously, having seen the Sheffield United game this week, that's not the case, and he's back with us. I'm with you, Matt. I think he's a great goalkeeper at Championship level. He's a really good goalkeeper. But unfortunately for himself, if he did want to kind of stay at that level, he's 32 in October, I believe. So he's at an age there where no one's going to really come in for him looking to develop any further. He's a guy that plays right now, and the Championship's pretty set for number 1s. So I think more for Lee's problem, he's stuck with us anyway. If it bites me on the arse between now and the end of this transfer window when he goes, Maxwell seems okay. Matt, I thought in the preseason friendlies, he's I don't know, he doesn't fill you with confidence like Nichols does. I feel like maybe it's because we've not seen enough of him. Just he's got a bit of the Ben Hamerisms about him, I think. And maybe it's a confidence thing, especially in the game against was it the Cypriot?
Limassol. Was it Limassol?
Yeah.
No,
Aris Limassol. It was quite. Just thought it was a little bit, I don't know, nervy. He looked nervy. And it's a preseason friendly. It's not really a big game. And now they're only little small warning signs, but it made me in that game just want to see Lee Nichols back in the Town shirt more than ever before. Chapman's your 3rd kind of goalkeeper in here, and if we need him, yeah. Fantastic. Well, not a fantastic situation. It's an awful situation, but you are set there at 3 if Lee Nichols stays. I'm still not sure he will be, even though I struggle to see where he'd start in the Championship side right now. It's just the things we've seen and the selections we've had up until this point. I'm not even sure if the club expected him to be here at the beginning of the season up until even maybe Sheffield United last Friday.
I think that's right, isn't it, Johnny? I think when you looked at when Huddersfield Town got relegated, the vultures circle, don't they? It's just what happens in football. It's part and parcel of it. And then you would look at who in this Huddersfield Town squad would potentially go, and you would probably pick 3 players out. One of them being Sorba Thomas, who's gone to Nantes. The other being Michael Helik, who's still here. And then the other being Lee Nichols. You look at those 3, and Jack Redoni, obviously, who went fairly quickly. Those are the 3 or 4 that you would look at. Lee Nichols has got a contract till 2026. So there's no sort of haste to push him out the door, if you like, to get, maximize money or revenue from our end. He would still be, like Killer says, he's 32 in October. You're not going to get 5 million for, you're not going to get, I don't think at his age it makes much of a difference in terms of finances, what you would get now and in 12 months. Chris Maxwell, I agree with Killer. Whenever I saw Chris Maxwell, there's just something that just makes me uneasy, and I say this as a goalkeeper who's never been anywhere near the level of Chris Maxwell, but there are certain things that fill defenses with confidence, and Lee Nichols does that the thing with Chris Maxwell is he does things which a young Alex Smithers used to do, in that 10 shots at Lee Nichols in the same place would yield 10 results. With Chris Maxwell, it's like 6 or 7, and then so if certain scenarios happen, you're not quite 100% confident that Chris Maxwell's going to deal with that situation the same way every time, and I think that just leads to a slight uneasiness in the defense. And I don't think you can really point to massive things with Chris Maxwell that he's done wrong. I mean, the one Limassol goal he probably should have been disappointed he didn't save. There's the goal at Ipswich, which was a little bit weak. And then there was another goal, which is just slipping my mind at the minute, which I also felt was a little bit weak as well last season. But he'd made a lot of good saves as well. In and amongst, there was a lot of good positive things. And he's 34. He's of a good age. He's experienced. He's supposed to be a really good character. Perfect number 2. But the question is, Jonny, can you carry a perfect number 2 in League One when you sort of, when you're looking at sort of squad harmony, and when you're looking at how you could maybe utilize wages in different areas as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think there's a couple of things around keepers that you got to be playing week in, week out. We've seen a few keepers come through the town, number 2 into number 1s, haven't necessarily performed, and have gone elsewhere and actually done really well, where they've been given game time. So fans can fill in the blanks who kind of keepers we're referring to there. And it's to be expected. Sharpness is massive in football. And if you're playing regularly, certainly just like a keeper, you're going to get that. So you're always going to get a number 2 come in and maybe look a little bit shaky, a little bit different. Sometimes just how they physically appear can look, you're not used to something. You're used to seeing Nichols, or used to seeing Smithies, or used to seeing the keeper in there, which and when someone looks a bit different, you almost you kind of have that little bit of nervousness, and they will kind of approach it a bit differently. But I think Maxwell, if Nichols went, there's a decision. Duff could go out and recruit potentially another number 1, pick a number 1 from a League One team. That's an option. But it's what you've touched on there, Matt. It's budget, isn't it? And if you think it's how important you put a keeper, I guess. Hartwick's a big believer in keepers just coming to mint 10 a penny and we can fill a gap. You might feel differently being an ex-keeper.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. Yeah.
And I think it's I'm probably somewhere in the middle, and I think it's where it's where else you feel that budget could be placed. Will Nichols go? Is a bigger question. I think it's a bit of house of cards, isn't it? I think it's what's going to happen. I think he's of an age where he could well stay and back the team to get back up. I think that'd be really, really good. I think he'd be key in our fight to get back up if he does stay. If Maxwell does take the number 1 position, I don't think I'd be too unduly worried. Certainly, I'd probably look to leave it at least till January and look to kind of use the money to strengthen elsewhere. The great position Town are in is that he's on a reasonably long contract. We don't need to sell. It's going to have to be a deal that works for Huddersfield Town. I don't think Nichols is going to be absolutely kind of causing problems to leave. Obviously, if a Swansea came in for him, you've got to think he's going to want to go. But yeah, I think it's very much, it's got to work for Huddersfield. And if we can get a price where you can look to recruit someone in of a first team standard, then fantastic. If Nichols goes and they back Maxwell, they're going to have to bring somebody in. So maybe they look to kind of take a chance on a slightly younger keeper who can look to kind of push Maxwell alongside Chapman as well. So it'll be interesting to see what they do if that does happen. But hopefully we'd never find out and Nichols stays, because as a quality of the keeper that he is, he would be one of the best in League One. And looking at the game against Sheffield United, I mean, he's already proven what he can do to keep Town in a game. It's a pre-season friendly, but he's clearly looking very, very sharp. And someone who has had slower starts of the last 2 seasons as well, it's good to see him looking that sharp during a week before the season starts.
Right, let's move on. So we're all quite happy, aren't we, with the back three? I've maybe been a little bit harsh on Maxwell. I feel like I've come away being a bit harsher on him, but I think there is a really good point to be made in there. I remember when I used to play football and as a goalkeeper, and just one anecdote from my time, there was the time when a new goalkeeper came as well to sort of challenge, and our manager at the time didn't really want to pick one or the other, so he would play 1-2 weeks on and then the other 2, and so you'd be like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off for a while, and it did neither of us any good whatsoever, because you don't build that, like you say, Jonny, you don't build that sharpness, and you make errors that you shouldn't be making because you're not used to, you're not in that rhythm. And for goalkeeping, it's it's almost like swimming and driving and silly little things like that, where if you're constantly doing these things, it becomes second nature. Whereas if you stop just for 5 minutes, it can sort of impact your routine, and you can be very different. And obviously, I ousted the other goalkeeper and played the rest of the season with ease. But let's move on from my terrible level of football. Right, defense, I think, is my main worry actually in this team. We'll come on to attackers, but for me, I think we're going to bring attackers in, and that will change the face of where it is now. It's the defense which I look at, and the one thing for me is I think we were going to line up like this, like a normal 3. And so for those watching on YouTube and those not watching on YouTube, I'll try my best to describe what I'm doing. So the sort of centre backs would go wider under Michael Duff, very similar to this. So they would kind of go into these areas whereby they can then get around people that would block the passing lane. So they would be moving into these sort of areas, and the wing backs can then push on because the wide centre backs are coming to play out. What we'll see from Evans on the right hand side, I think, is we would see a lot of combinations with Sorensen on this right hand side here, whereby Evans will sometimes come right out to the right flank, and then Sorensen may underlap into these areas as well, which means come inside of Evans and go into that sort of area, maybe like Pippa used to do under Carlos Corberan. And then Sorensen will look to, sort of feed the two in the box. However, the injury, I think, to Radinho Balca has thrown a bit of a spanner into the works. I think the idea really was to push the left wing back, either Mikael Miller or Jaheim Headley, quite high. And I think this is still the plan now. And I think it's also the reason why Brodie Spencer is finding himself on the left, because what we seem to be doing now is we seem to be playing two sort of centre-backs here in normal positions like you would in a 4, and then the third centre-back is almost like a utility fullback in some ways, in that what he does is he kind of comes and wraps around and supports and allows the left-sided wing-back to get higher than what Sorensen does on the right-hand side. Now, what that kind of leads into is it means Sorensen maybe doesn't get as high as what he would ordinarily want to do. And Tom Lees has come in on this right centre-back thing. And I think Tom Lees has done brilliantly in pre-season so far. I think he's been fabulous. But Tom Lees is not someone who has the speed or Matty Pearson to then come out into these areas very quickly and cover. And where Town are kind of finding themselves struggling at the minute is if the ball breaks down in this sort of defensive mid of Town's attacking 10 position, the different box numbers out there. I'm not going to start talking about different box numbers like that former FC United women's manager or anything. But if it drops down in kind of like the right back or the right defensive central midfield area for the opposition, what Town are finding is a cross-field ball is really taking us out at the moment, and this is struggling. So Sorensen is finding himself a little bit deeper than ordinary what he would do, but Brodie is finding himself as more of an orthodox left back, and it kind of drops into a 4 sometimes out of possession. And it kind of works. And I think that is something that we learned in the Limassol game, because we were kind of getting pulled wide. And you see from the highlights, Tom Lees was getting pulled into these areas here where he doesn't really want to be at sort of wide right centre back. And then Limassol were coming into different areas to really hurt us. And Mikael Helik was kind of struggling with all this space, because again, as much as we love Michal Helik, he is not blessed with turbo speed or anything like that. So I think Radinho Balca's injury has kind of altered and shifted how we would line up in terms of that 3. And I think it's taken away the flexibility of what we would have seen down the right-hand side, whereby Balca would have fed in Sorensen and Evans, and you would have seen a really good combination between Balca, Evans, and Sorensen down this right-hand side, and then balls into this box here. And also, I think Herbie Kane is coming into this left midfield role here, left central midfield role. And I think why that was quite interesting is because Herbie Kane can then jump into this area, and then he can look to find Mikael Miller or Jaheim Headley quite high on the. And then Brodie Spencer can also come into these sort of areas here. He can either come into sort of a defensive midfield shape, or he can then be the overlapping centre-back like you would see with Chris Wilder. But the spanner in there again is now Ben Wiles, because Ben Wiles' pre-season form has been phenomenally good. Unfortunately, he's picked up a knock against Sheffield United, so we'll have to see if he plays against Peterborough. But Ben Wiles has forced his way in here, and he almost plays a little bit like Evans does as well in terms of how he comes wide. He can come wide as well into certain areas to get the ball. He can pop up into the 10 position as well. Evans does the same thing, but his mobility has really added a different layer to what we were perhaps initially going to do as well pre-season. I think what we were going to see is we were going to see a 6 here, which was probably going to be Hogg. Probably should be Kasumu for certain teams as well, because Kasumu is very quick and he can get out to that crossfield ball a lot quicker than a Hogg or a Herbie Kane can do. But Ben Wiles has added a different layer there. So we've got 2 really good attacking 8s, if you like, which has seen Herbie Kane now sit a little bit, which doesn't quite suit him, but it does suit us a little bit on the ball because he can then dictate from that position. And our midfield is started to look like it's full of options, and I really love that. But the defense just leaves me a little bit unsure because it is lopsided. I mean, if we do lose Mikael Helik in the transfer window, he is... I would imagine we would then replace him with a more naturally wide centre-back, maybe a left-sided one, which would then mean Brody could come down to the right-hand side, and then he could deputise for where Radinho Balca would have been and play that role whereby you can do those combinations, which we were probably going to do originally. How Town may sort of, when in terms of out of possession, I think what we're seeing as well is we're seeing 2 strikers up front here who will press the centre-backs. And then we're presuming that they're going to play a back 4. And then the wing backs also push quite high as well. Evans will push up into the midfield. And you kind of see this here where Town goes sort of man for man, quite high up the pitch. And that works quite well in terms of turning the ball over. The danger again is in this sort of like defensive midfield. The switch pass down towards Town's channels can kind of catches out a little bit. And we have seen Brody Spencer at left centre-back kind of get done on the inside a little bit as well. We saw that against Sheffield United. And that's just a young defender learning the game. And that's quite... And you know what? In fairness, Terence Congolo used to get done by the same thing when playing in a back 3 as well. He would get done down the inside. So that is the main thing. And Helik's not the quickest. So what you're then doing is you're having 2 centre-backs coming across who are not the quickest to sort of cover for that. And for me, this is why it's such a shame Balca got injured, because he changes the face of that back 3 in terms of passing and what he can do, especially with his pace as well. But I've waffled quite a lot there, and I think a lot of people have probably stopped listening at this point because they don't have absolutely no idea what crap I'm talking about. But in terms of defence, there are a lot of options. I mean, Brody Spencer for me as a left centre-back, I understand, Killer, why they're doing it. I understand it's kind of not an out-and-out centre-back, and he kind of provides that wraparound protection, doesn't he? So your wing back can go high because Miller and Headley are not the most natural in terms of defending. So you kind of get that. But for me, I just look at our defense and it just screams back 4 to me. It just screams I am happier in a back 4. The players that we've got there just sort of scream I would be happier in a 4 than I would be a 3. Although I'm not saying it's not going to work, but I just kind of look at it and think Helik, Lees, Spencer, they would surely be happier in a back 4 than a 3. I don't know if it's just me, but whether you agree with it.
I think everyone's very excited about this season. I mean, the stadium looks fantastic. There's a bit of a feel-good factor with affordable season tickets once more, right? But honestly, Matt, it's a shame we're doing defence first because I feel like I'm going to put a real downer on it. Because, right, Duff plays a 3-5-2. That's what he always plays, or a 3-4-1-2 sometimes. But it's a back 3. However, if you look at our squad, it doesn't lend itself to play 3-5-2. And no matter how many times I try and chop it up, I just can't find it. I can't find how it works. And now prior to Balca getting injured, I still thought we were 1 short. When you're looking at your main centre-back in the middle there, we've got Helik, right? And even if he leaves, you've got Matty Pearson or Tom Lees, who I think, especially Tom Lees, can do it. They're the central centre-back.
Yeah, they'd slot in, wouldn't they?
They'd be fine there. Pearson less so than Lees, but someone with a bit of a brain that can just organise, keep everyone in check, right? So I think we're set there, even if Helik does leave. But like you say, Matt, for the left centre-backs and right centre-backs, they have to have a bit of pace about them because Town, when going forward, are going to overcommit and leave just 3 there as centre-backs. You need 2 with pace. To cover the gaps, the wing-backs will undoubtedly leave when they go forward. Now, Limassol absolutely destroyed us in that first 45 minutes. They showed every team in League One how to beat Huddersfield Town. If Town try and play Michael Duff's perfect 3-5-2 that he wanted to play before Balca got injured and he tried against Limassol, we will struggle this season because that outball over our wing-backs' heads killed us. Honestly, Tom Lees lost a race with a 15-yard head start for the first goal because he's not a right centre-back in a back 3. We have to, and the thing that's worrying me, Matt, is that we're not even rumoured to be going out to find centre-backs that can kind of play that role. We know we're after a striker because we were in for Alfie May and it didn't work out. But for the centre-backs, it's been pretty quiet on that front. And we've seen already in the friendlies that lack of pace is causing, like you say, Matt, on right-hand side, Sorensen's having to sit a little bit deeper to cover for it. And we've already got a bastardised back four. It's not the system Duff wants to play. But we're already adjusting for it, and we've not even hit the season yet. We are very, very light for centre-backs in the system he wants to play. I think going forward, and we'll go through it, no doubt, in the next half an hour or so, there's great progression, and we look a different team, and we look very, very hopeful. But at the moment, we look very easy to counter against. And you must remember, we're playing in a division where many teams will sit back. They'll expect us to be the aggressor, to have a good go. And to be the aggressor, you have to overcommit wing-backs. That's how this system works, by overloading on both sides with underlapping wing-backs, like you say, Matt, like Pippa. That's the best. I hadn't really thought about it before you mentioned it. But that's the best example town fans could look for to see what he's wanting our wing-backs to do. But the outball that other team will have, if we keep our centre-backs on the left and right-hand side as slow as they are, won't go well for us. It really will not. I hope I'm wrong, and I've been wrong many times before, but just the little snippets in games, it's why I got really pissed off with people after the Limassol game, and that people were saying, it's only a friendly, it doesn't matter, there were good parts in it. They were, and results don't really matter, but systemic problems can be spotted in any single game. That's why you have pre-season friendlies. If anyone thinks friendlies are just to get fit, just to get match sharpness, that's not the way at all. And listening to Duff after that game in his post-match conference, he wasn't very happy with it himself. He said he wasn't very happy with certain aspects of it. And we have to work on it. Already we're putting Spencer in there, Matt. And Spencer, you and I spoke about this before.
Love him as a player. Love him as a player.
In a back four,
it's a big ask, isn't it, for that role?
He's not a wing back, and he's not a right or left centre back. He's not either of those two things. And we're kind of trying to shoehorn him into it because we don't have any other options already. And I hope he grows, because to be fair to him, from his debut, I think, was it again? Well, not his second debut when he came back after going out on loan against Man City. He's grown every game since then. He's looked great. There's little concentration snaps where he kind of gets a bit aggressive and overcommits in a tackle and gets drawn out of position a little bit because he's young and inexperienced. But he does learn every single game. It's going to be a steep learning curve if we're expecting him to be able to play as a right or left centre-back for 46 games this season, because it doesn't lend him to his abilities just yet. I have worries more than the only worries I have in this team really is if the right and left centre-backs don't have the pace, there are very simplistic ways for other teams to cause us problems.
Yeah, and you talk about that Limassol game, and I think that's where this change came in, whereby Lees came in as that right centre-back and kind of tucked in. And it's very reminiscent to where, if you remember, but on the other side, for when Mark Robbins used to have Adam Hamill quite high, and then Tommy Smith used to pretty much just play as a very defensive right-sided defender, didn't he? And then he would come and cover. And we've seen Ollie Turton do that really effectively under Carlos Corberán as well. But Ollie, in League One, as a back three, you don't really want people bombing balls into the box and having Ollie Turton and Brodie Spencer. Ideally, you want proper centre-backs who are happy to win balls, head it, kick it, that kind of thing. And we've got that in Hellick Lees. But you don't really want Hellick Lees and Pearson there, because the moment one of them is dragged wide, the whole deck of cards falls down, doesn't it? And that for me is where this is kind of coming in, and Sorensen is sort of sitting deeper into that four. And it does work. I think that's why we've improved. I think, in that sort of back four does, but it moved a little bit from last Sorensen and his ability. But the good thing about it is his energy is unreal. His ability to get up and down is phenomenal. So I don't think it takes a large percentage away from him. It just takes that starting position a little bit deeper, or moves his starting position a little bit deeper. I think we've got a very good player there. But for me, the main sort of worry I've got is just how that defense copes. And I mean, it'll be fine against the majority of teams, I think, that will play, because I think the majority of teams won't have somebody who, like a League One Aaron Moy, who can just unlock you like that. It's very rare you get players like that, because as soon as good players like that come up, they get snapped up quite quickly. But you do get them. You do get them kind of unearthing. But that's how I kind of see that going. I mean, would you maybe look at anyone different? I mean, Josh Ruffles can play that left centre-back role. I think Josh Ruffles is now of an age whereby he's perhaps filled out a bit too much to play wing-back. So he's no longer really that wing-back option. But because he's filled out, he's actually quite a really good option for left centre-back, Jonny. I suppose what Town have got is they've got options there. They've got Loic Aina, who He's very raw. They've got Ollie Turton, who can play that right centre-back role, or central if you're wanting somebody to be spare. They've got Lees, they've got Pearson, and then you've obviously got Brodie Spencer and Mikael Hellick there. So there's a lot of options and there's a lot of combinations that can be tried. And it could be that, you're looking at that back three and you could potentially move Brodie Spencer back to the right where Balker would have been and Josh Ruffles comes in. But again, you're then thinking you've got effectively two fullbacks in the back three, and then you just kind of worry about that aerial thing. You look at someone like Sam Cosgrove at Barnsley, for example, and he would eat every one of our centre-backs alive if you put the ball in the air to him, apart from maybe Mikael Hellick. So there's a lot of things to sort of think about, and maybe we're over worrying and over complicating certain things. I think we're potentially guilty of that because we're analysing. What do you think, mate, of that defence?
I don't think we're over worrying. And I think the issue we've got, I mean, the Town website puts 10 defenders that it doesn't have Loic Aina on there, so actually it's 11 defenders.
It's not got a squad number, actually, has it? That's a good point.
Yeah, I'd argue only one of them, I think, is actually I think only one of them is banging first team quality and fit for purpose for the role that have been given. That's Sorensen, potentially Mikkel Miller as well. The rest of them, we've kind of just gone through them there and almost like made a case. Well, they could do a job there, or they're a right back or left back, but they could play inside of a three, or he used to be a left back, but now he's probably could. That's the problem, isn't it? That's the problem. We've not got that natural fit. We've got quality players, but like we've seen for so long across different areas of the field, you need to play players to their strengths. And I think if we're trying to go and run with trying to bring Ruffles in or Spencer in, it will work against some teams in League One because there is a gap of quality in League One. But if you're wanting to work for the top two, or even like the top four, top six, there is quality in there that will unpick it. And I just think for me, like what Killer said, the fact that we're not even being linked with someone to fill those places and go out and get someone who is fit for purpose as to play in a back three and has a strength of what a back three centre back, either playing in the middle or the right and left, because they're all varied roles. It is a worry because if we don't do that, there's going to be two players arguably who've got a little bit of a weakness. Balker would have fit that. We know he's out till at least next year, and not to be a downer on him, but he's incredibly injury prone. Are they going to Niels after that? Honestly, how many games you see him playing next season? If he gets to double figures, I'll be impressed. So for me, he's not an option. So you've got a massive gap there. And it kind of puts a bit of an argument that if someone was, are the club thinking, well, we're not expecting Hellick to be here, come September? Are they waiting for a move for Hellick to generate cash and then maybe buy one or two centre-backs who arguably will be better than Hellick, but could potentially play the system better than Hellick? That could be a thought process. But that there isn't anybody really being linked to come in is a concern, because would I rather keep Hellick and then have to kind of shoehorn in people around him? Or would I rather lose Hellick and for this season potentially get players who fit the system, less quality, but certainly have the attributes, i.e. one of them being pace, to come in and fill in around? It's hard to know what would be the best option, really. But for me, it is a worry. And trying to shoehorn people in, yep, they could develop. We've got younger players who could develop in position. We've got older players who might change the game and adapt. But it is a concern, and the way we want to play and the pressure we're going to put up the field to win the ball back is going to leave one-on-ones with players that, they're playing against League One, but players have got pace, and it's all he needs pace to get around a Lees or a Pearson. Then players are going to be able to do that in this division. So it is of concern to me, and it's kind of watch your space as to what happens, really, I think.
Alternatively, if you lined up a back four and you said Brodie Spencer, Mikael Hellick, Tom Lees, Josh Ruffles, you would go, do you know what, that's a top 3 or 4 back four in terms of League One. That's quite a solid back four.
Yeah, it's not
all doom and gloom, is it? It's how it fits, isn't it? It's how it fits together, which is my sort of worry. I'm not worried about a lot of the players. It's just how they mold together into that system, which I just kind of have a slight issue with defensively. I know Killer's ready to jump in.
My question is here. Well, I think it is. I think our season depends on how well our defense works. I think the midfield we'll go on to why we think that, and the attack why I think that. But the defense is the questionable part of this 11, and if it can withstand what will be thrown at it for the players we have in it. But I don't know what you guys reckon on it. For me, if the defence works, my prediction for the season is very different to how I think it will go based on the guys we have today.
Yeah, I mean, if you
Yeah,
don't
I'd
concede, you're obviously going to win. I think we've got quality to win games, haven't we? Even if we play poorly, if you don't concede, we're going to create chances, aren't we, to win games when you've got a Reece Healy or you've got Ben Wiles or Evans, etc., Anthony Evans, etc. So we'll move on from the defense because like I say, individually, I like a lot of these players. I just don't see them fitting together quite as well, maybe, as what I would like to see yet. But, they could surprise. I mean, Brodie Spencer, the way he's grown as a footballer we could be in 2 months thinking what a player this guy is. He's now, made that centre-back place his own, and he could possibly do it because he's that talented. Let's move on to midfield. I like this midfield a lot. I've hated Huddersfield Town midfields for years. I love Lewis O'Brien. I loved Aaron Moy. I've been a fan of Jonathan Hoggs in the past as well. Critical at times when I felt it's needed, but I've always been a fan of Hoggy. But this midfield, I genuinely get excited by. I think this League One midfield is better than what we've had in the last 2 years in the Championship. We'll look at wing backs first. Sorensen, I think, on the right-hand side is a brilliant signing. I think that's a really good signing. I think the signs in pre-season are really good as well. There's a lot of people kind of panicking that we don't have a backup option to him, but I know this is very much could do a job, but I think when it's a backup, I think that's acceptable. You look at Ollie Turton, he's not the most attacking, but he can do it in a short-term scenario. Brodie Spencer could come out and do it in a longer-term scenario. David Kasumu's done it quite well in the Championship. He could fit in there. I think we're okay for that. People, I think one or two are quite worried, but I'm not. On the left side, Ben Jackson's obviously gone to Barrow, and everyone I'm sure wishes Ben all the best. But we've got Jaheim Headley there, who is a very interesting character in terms of how he's been brought into the leadership group as well. Because I think at the end of last season, he was frozen out a little bit. And I think a lot of people looked at him, and maybe me included, looked at him and thought, I wonder if he's one of these bad apples that Andre Brightonwriter is talking about. But Michael Duff has been the opposite with him. He's brought him into this group. And I think that might be a good way to get the best out of Jaheim Headley. I think he may end up being the start, maybe not at first, but I think over sort of a medium term, he might end up playing more than what Miller does. The bits I've seen from Miller and heard about Miller kind of makes me question some of his end product at times now, and I have seen it in pre-season. A lot of crosses just kind of go over everybody or ahead of everybody. They kind of be a little bit rushed, whereas Headley's slightly more composed in that final third, but they both drive with the ball really well. They both sort of carry the ball at the flank. And to be honest, Mikael Miller against Sheffield United, it was like having two players at times because he could carry the ball really well up that flank, which is really, really key for a wing back to be able to sort of transition you from like phase 1, 2, 3, all the way through the different thirds of the pitch. And Sorensen can do it as well on the other side. So I think in terms of wing backs for League One, we're quite good. And in terms of the only position I'm a little unsure of in midfield is the number 6. And that's because I'm not 100% sure what Michael Duff's looking for in there. Michael Duff doesn't look for sort of 70% possession. So I'm not sure he looks for a deep line playmaker as such, to use a football manager kind of term. So which makes me think that maybe it's going to be a Kasumu or a Hogg in there, and he's going to look for somebody who just looks to pick up second balls in and around and then set the attack going away. And Kasumu's quite good at that. If you look at the stats for the last time Kasumu was in League One, he was phenomenal at that. Hoggy will hopefully be more of a player you bring on next season, or he plays certain games where you need that character in midfield. If we're going in expecting him to play 46 times next season in League One, it's not good prep for me. And that's nothing against him, but he's pushing towards the second half of his 30s, and I don't think it's fair to expect that of him at this stage. Ben Wiles has been phenomenal, the pick of the preseason players for me, and he's probably taken that left central role from Herbie Kane at the minute. I think with his performances, providing he's fit. And then Evans on the other side has looked really good as well, and it's very exciting. You've got Evans, who's very good at set pieces as well. He will go out to the right hand side quite a lot. I've seen him naturally do that, and he did that at Bristol Rovers. And Town seem to have, have picked Evans and are asking him to do the same things he was doing at Bristol Rovers, which made him good last season, which is a really good sign. Ben Wiles, he's really good at that sort of 8 box-to-box role. And again, Duffy's asking him to do that, which again is very important. Herbie Kane's the interesting one because he did get, I think he got around double figures for Barnes last season for goals. He can take set pieces as well. He's the creative one who can, he's the thinker, if you like, in there. So we've got that. He could play at 6, and I would expect he will play at 6 in games where we probably will have high possession and it'll work because he can start off the attacks from deep. Whereas games which are probably going to be a bit more 50-50, I would expect a Kasuma or a Hogg for winning the ball. And maybe Kane plays over Ben Wiles in this left central midfield role. But that's interesting because I see that left midfield role as kind of an enabler for the left wing back getting really high and getting balls across the box as well. And the same for Evans on the other side. Evans is almost like a fulcrum or a pivot style player in that players will move around him in that position rather than through, and sort of through him rather than look for him to sort of get on the end of things, if you like. So that's really interesting, and I can see that working really well. And I really like the midfield. The only wild card I would potentially throw into this is that I'm a huge fan of Tom Upenda. I look at Tom Upenda, and I know he's been played at number 8 quite a bit in pre-season, but I genuinely think he could sit and he could dictate. He's clever enough, he's calm enough, even at his age, to just sort of sit there, and he's big enough as well to win the ball, and he's calm enough then to distribute. I genuinely think that is a potentially wild card for Town that they've got, that Tommy Upenda can sit at number 6 and really sort of be impressive this season. And I think that's going to be something to look out for in his performances there. I know they've currently still got Scott High and Josh Osterfield, but to be honest, I know there's a lot of games to play in League One, but I would imagine they might be on their way. I think they've got to a certain age now whereby I think Town will look at them and say, is there any point playing them at sort of 23, 24, or shall we just play a Michael Stone, for example, in the Bristol Street Motors? Because Michael Stone may grow into it, whereas these guys have had their opportunities, and they may move on. I'm not sure what they're going to think there. But me, I'm excited with that midfield, Johnny. Really excited by it. I think this is the best midfield Town have had since. I'll be honest. I think this is a better midfield than we had when we finished third in the Championship with Carlos Corberán. Apart from Lewis O'Brien, pretty much did everybody's job, and he was phenomenal that season. But this is a really exciting midfield for me. I'm really looking forward to watching this all click. Hopefully, come next Saturday.
I think the key thing there is depth, isn't it? I think for so many, for the last 2 kind of like close seasons, we've said 2 seasons ago we said we really need to sign a midfielder. Last season we said we're going to sign midfielders because what lunacy would be the world that we don't sign midfielders, and both times we didn't really, did we? This close season we've signed midfielders, and we've signed midfielders different to what we've kind of done from in a defensive perspective. We looked at there, we've signed midfielders to play a role that we want them to play, and I think that's why it really works as well. We've picked players that have performed at this level. We've picked players that have been kind of at the top of their teams as well, which really helps. And yeah, it's really exciting. It's like you're looking at them, and as you're moving people around there on the screen, you're kind of thinking, it's good to see. I like the fact we've got a 3. I like the fact the games I've watched where we are playing, we can pass the ball now, which is new.
It's amazing, isn't it? How many times have I lost it completely nice on this podcast? Yeah. I might even smile next season when we talk.
I know it's been a massive bugbear, and Joe, I've had friends watch Huddersfield Town play. One of the things they comment is how slow it was to receive the ball, turn, play a pass, and it was just pedestrian. And it's nice to see the range of passes we've got. I mean, I've not seen too much games I've watched. I've not seen too much of Evans, but I've seen a lot of Herbie Kane's range of passing, which is exciting as well.
Herbie Kane's really good at changing the pace of the game as well. I think that's a really key thing to sort of throw in as well.
Yeah, he is, and it's because what you said there. He's clever. Not that other players aren't, but he can sort of read the playbook, and he can understand the threats, and he picks the pass to our strengths where players are on the pitch, which really helps. But yeah, and it's exciting. I mean, I think the best. This is meant in a positive way, so please don't get me with this. But the best way is the fact that Hogg won't play 46 games, because Hogg would have played 46 games for us, but a successful Huddersfield Town League One doesn't need a Hogg every game. It needs Hogg off the pitch. So we needed to get that contract. But he'll come in and do jobs. I mean, when it's tight, he'll keep it tight. We were 1-0 up away from home. We've got 25 minutes left or 20 minutes left. He's the type of player that you could look to bring on that, and that's what he needs to be used for. But the fact you've mentioned different players there, and Hogg was kind of like and Hogg can play as well. That's what it needs to be. We couldn't have run with that. And an exciting kind of youth as well. I've not seen a lot of Openda play. I know you speak really highly of him, and Chicken and Harps speak really highly of him. But it's fantastic, just an array of options. You've kind of explained the ins and outs of it there, but for me, the main thing is that we've got that depth. Now, if we get a knock, we're not going to be out. We've got players who can play. If someone's having an off day, we've got a bench. I say, will Kane play? Will Wiles play? Will Kasuma play? Will Hogg play? We've got depth, and in a 46-game season in League One, you're going to need that. You're going to need someone. In fact, we can actually make those changes to impact the game as well. It's starting to see those positives, which we'll kind of carry on to in the attack as well. But for me, that's where, like Killer said, what's going to cost us the season is the defence. What's going to win us the season is that midfield. If it clicks, which it looks like it's working, that is what we've needed. Yep, strikers. We've called for strikers. The reason why we've not been scoring goals, we've not had players who can actually do before it gets to the strikers' feet. Yeah, exactly. Now we've got players who are clever, who can do everything a little bit differently. We've got long-range shooters, we've got quick passes, we've got engines. Absolute hats off to the recruitment team, because for me, 10 out of 10.
One thing we can mention as well is with regards to Hogg is that he's capable of dropping into that back three as a central centre back. We saw that under Carlos Coburn, and he did it really effectively as well. It was quite surprising because Jonathan Hogg is genuinely really good in the air for a bloke who's 5'8". Killer can obviously, empathise with that, can't you? But I'm
5'10", Matt. I'm 5'10". I've got an extra 2 inches, and it makes a world of difference.
You got your what they call those shoes, enziguri, whatever they are. Not enziguri, that's the wrestling move, isn't it? But I can't remember what they're called. But it's all over Facebook. Add 2 inches too. But he can drop in there, and also if Town do decide to go to a 4, Lasse Sorensen can sit in at the number 6 as well, where he's played at Stoke. So there are different options there. So it is interesting. But Killer, what about you for midfield? Because I think you're sort of on the same page, aren't you, really, as me and Jonny?
I think it's fantastic. One of the biggest things to mention here is last January we needed players, and they went out and brought speculative guys in like Bolker, like Healy, I suppose a little bit, but obviously he was more successful in France than he'd been in England at Watford. This time we've gone out and signed proven League One midfielders because we are in League One. And I think that's absolutely crucial. We've got guys, like Jonny said, that have done it at this level, at good teams. And whilst we can question whereabouts we're going to finish, we will be at the top end of this table somewhere. And we will dominate games a little bit more than we have done in the Championship, to say the least. Losing Jack Radone is a massive thing. People absolutely gave Jack Radone all sorts of pelters last year. And you can question his mental approach to being a Town player and how that kind of ended. But you can see already at Coventry how influential he's been, even in their pre-season games. He's an amazing player that was all over the pitch all the time. We lost him, but rather than bringing in kind of one guy, we've brought in a bit of a unit there with Evans, Herbie Kane, and realistically a brand new Ben Wiles. And it just shows you Ben Wiles is a perfect example of how this midfield is now better. In the Championship, he was having to work so hard with Jonny Hogg in there, and it just didn't work for him. We just had no ball. There were no possession up the top end of the field. He'd looked, to most Town fans' view, in Town fans' opinions, as an awful signing. And already this pre-season, he's kind of turned it around, and people are like, oh, look at him, he's amazing. His finish against Sheffield United the other day was unbelievable. He's controlling the box. It was all class, wasn't it? He wouldn't have done that last year. He wouldn't have done that. But now you're looking at League One proven and midfielders who are working well together. They all bring a little different facet of how you can make an engine room work. And it looks like we will dominate games in that midfield. We'll be very awkward to play against, and nobody will fancy it. We've not really seen that much of Kasuma, have we? I don't think. When Duff's put out his first team in the friendlies, or kind of grouped them for 45 minutes, Kasuma's not really been there. So I honestly think, Matt, with that change into the back four at times with Sorensen a little bit deeper has meant he won't play with a defensive midfielder. Unless, again, we're playing against tougher teams. I think we'll know a lot more about this after the Peterborough game. Yeah, Matt, as you say, Peterborough aren't as good as they have been before. But I think we'll see in that game if he does have any intention of playing sometimes with the kind of three attacking midfielders. I know Evans is a little bit different, but it's been fantastic. Honestly, it's been refreshing to see it. Now, Michael Duff football is more possession a little bit at the back and then a very quick transition when you sense that the other team have got a little bit of space because the wing-back's going. And that's what Herbie Kane does really well. you can kind of see why he's here and what role he's going to be given. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how it plays out, especially in the first 2 games, because from that, we'll be able to see how the finesse of the midfield will try and be for the beginning of the season anyway.
Yeah. I think that is a good roundup as well. I think if we do see that I think Kasumu might still play. I think Kasumu's best performance, I think, in pre-season was in the 20 minutes he came on against Sheffield United. Excuse me. Against Sheffield, when they had the ball, Kasumu was really good, really sort of quick at getting in and winning things against Sheffield United. And Sheffield United had a good team out. And I felt Kasumu's introduction actually really benefited Town. And that was the first sort of time in pre-season that I'd seen it in a very positive light. I think he came on in Austria, and I think he gave pretty much every pass away, and he really struggled. But against Sheffield United, you could see the value of Kasumu then, how how when they had the ball, how good he was and how quick he was at closing space, and then not allowing their midfield to breathe. And hopefully we see that David Kasumu next season as and when we need that. And obviously he can, like I said earlier, he can cover on the right for that wing back role as well. Let's look up front. So we're very high on the midfield. I wouldn't say we were low on the defense. I think we're just a bit confused how it knits together successfully. We're high on the midfield. Strikers is going to be a mixed bag, but I think at the minute, your best 2 strikers are Reece Healy and Josh Koroma at the moment. Danny Ward is going to be important, I think, early on until the new recruits come in and they settle, because Danny Ward's experience. I know people don't like Danny Ward. A lot of people don't like Danny Ward, but I think he does bring certain things to this style of football which are useful. So I wouldn't rule Danny Ward out this season. So in terms of what they're looking for, I think you can see with the players that we've been linked with, they're all very similar. So you can see that Michael Duff is looking for 2 strikers who have little bits of almost everything. Josh Koroma has pace, which is why he's getting picked at the moment. Josh Koroma can press from the front. I know he's not always amazing at it, and sometimes he has those little blips in games where he can go quiet for 5-10 minutes and then come alive again. But Killer will. I know what Killer's going to say. He's going to go back to that Sheffield Wednesday game in January, aren't you, where Josh Koroma changed the game up front and through his pressing and through just having someone with pace. So I think what we're going to have, Reece Healy is obviously going to be the number 1 striker for Town at the minute. Reece Healy's, very clever as well. He's not just a fox in the box goal scorer, which I think he got the reputation for at Toulouse. He's actually a very clever player outside the box. He starts the press quite well. I'm still not seeing the pace that he maybe had prior to his knee injury. And so I'm not sure how that's going to play in. But what I really loved about Reece Healy last season when he played for us was, instead of trying to get onto the last defender like he did at Toulouse and previously at MK Dons, etc., he was able to drop into that 10 position as well, really smartly, and link play. And I really like that about Reece Healy. He's a lot more than what people maybe thought he was originally in terms of fans. He's going to initiate the press. Josh Koroma as well. So they're going to press really high up, which means that the wing backs are also potentially going to press high up. And that means that Town will be looking for a lot of turnovers high up the pitch. And that's why we're also been linked with Bailey Kadamatri, who is pace, 6 foot plus, very good at pressing. We've been linked with Ballard from Southampton, who's quick, pacey, pressing, scores goals. And again with Taylor at Luton as well, quick, pressing. We're looking for the same player. And I mean, there is a danger of having 4 players of the same style, in terms of, if that's not working, you don't have a B option. I mentioned Cosgrove earlier at Barnsley. Barnsley had the pace of Devante Cole, didn't they? And then they could bring Cosgrove on and throw the ball high in the box, and he would be an absolute menace. We saw that in the playoff semi-final against Bolton. But Town are very much looking for, at the minute, a certain type of striker, aren't they, to do a certain thing. And essentially it's to press high, Killer, isn't it? Press high, win the ball, cause the turnovers, and then Evans, Wiles, etc. can pick the ball up in these areas where they can shoot, or they can feed through for the pace of the striker as well. And then he threw one-on-one. And then you can see that's why they wanted Alfie May as well. He also follows the same pattern as well. Quick, scores goals. And that just seems to be what Town are looking for. And if we get I'd be very excited if we got Taylor from Luton. I've seen a lot of his highlights from when he was at Lincoln, and honestly, as a technical striker of the ball, he's very, very good. And there's a combination there already with Sorensen. So if you watch some of his goals from last season, you see Sorensen creates quite a few of them for him as well, which is really good. Bailey Kadamatri, I really like as well. We all loved his dad. Will be plenty of bring the vodka chance, I'm sure, if we manage to get him on loan. But again, he's very good at pressing, gets high, gets in opposition faces, and I've known him personally a little bit as well from previously coaching him as a young kid. He's someone who constantly strives to improve, constantly. He's a really nice, down-to-earth lad who really wants to improve, and he's got a really good work ethic. He'd be a fantastic signing, honestly, he would. And the same, and Ballard's probably the one that I know the least about, but from seeing little bits, and he played a little bit at Reading, he's actually he's very similar to Reece Healy in that he can drop off into that 10 role and link things as well, but he's very quick as well and scores goals, especially in the under-21s. So Town looking, this is obviously if the rumours are true, isn't it? Obviously we're working from the rumours, but it certainly looks like Town are looking for that type of striker and very much plenty of it. So I would imagine if Carone was having his sort of 10, 15 minutes, you can bring him off and you can put someone on who can do that job. And it seems to be that Town are going to try and overload Killer on pressing high and just being an absolute bunch of menaces up there.
Michael Duff likes pragmatism style football. He likes to make it as awkward for the opposition as possible. That's why corners, Matt, in-swingers, 6-yard box, kind of crowd it. Long throws he used to really use very well. It was actually Will Boyle, I think, at Cheltenham that benefited from that. But he likes to make it very awkward for the opposition. And now, before he's gone with big striker, small striker kind of pairings, and that's why you can already see, like you said, Josh Carone's getting more game time than I thought most of us would have expected to get, because he needs that pace up top. When you transition quickly, you need pace. Healy doesn't have the pace that I thought he would have. I expected more from him, to be honest. And like you say, Matt, knee injuries ruin strikers' pace. Even if someone's not fast in the first instinct, a bit like John Rhodes, as soon as you get one of those kind of bad injury, it just takes something away. And now Healy looks to me that's kind of happened there. So we need to find another option there to play up top with either Ward or Healy. It's most likely Healy, but to me, in this kind of system, Ward and Healy are going to give you the same thing. Maybe slightly different shades of it, in that Ward's a bit more aggressive and does a little bit extra work.
They're not going to get behind, are they? I think that's the thing with us.
They're not going to stretch the field. And now Michael Duff does play football. This might be upsetting for a few fans as well. He likes to, once in the lead, sit back quite a lot. And that's why if you look at the games that Michael Duff tends to win, the teams that he's in charge of has much less possession. I think with Cheltenham especially, around 35-40% possession when they won games. So you will get kind of sitting back. But the key is when you do sit back, you counter-attack. That's how you win those games. You're not sitting at 1-0 expecting we'll just take 1-0. But you're selectively choosing when to attack, when to press. Matt, we talk about pressing high. He does press high initially. But if the first press doesn't kind of work, they sit in really deep and let you come in. So again, with Cheltenham, I think they were 3rd or 4th for actual slow pressing overall, because eventually when they did engage, if they didn't get the ball, they all drop in, and that's why they didn't concede as many goals as they would have otherwise. Which is kind of uncommon with football managers. In fact, Darren Moore's a big Michael Duff fan, but maybe that's something I shouldn't mention at this point.
Well, we saw that against Sheffield United, where they dropped into the 5, didn't they? And that was why the Sheffield United game was really good, because they dropped into that 5 shape, and then the 3 central midfielders. I remember the commentator saying they were dropping too deep, but they weren't really, were they? They were kind of dropping into a really compact shape.
And as long as it's controlled and you still have that pace up top to at least provide a threat. The problem we had under Darren Moore is when we got in the lead, and all last season, really, we were in the lead far. How many games did we lose from a leading position? Like 11 games or something. It was quite a lot.
Double figure, yeah.
Because there's ways to drop back, but Michael Duff requires pace up top. So when you do drop back, you can hit that kind of long diagonal ball and chase it, get up the field and play from there so you can press. I don't think we can do it just yet with only Josh Carone. I think we need another striker. I think Town realised that. I'm not worried about that the same I'm worried about the defence, because we've been linked with Alpha Male. It was all but done according to every single rumour you could actually read up on it. And I'm sure we'll get it sorted. But with Healy and Ward, I think if you can get 46 games out of the pair of them, maybe 23 out of each, they will score goals. You just need that other guy with them with pace. So maybe it is JK. I'm a massive Carone fan. You know that, Matt. And I think as a centre forward, I think he's better than as a winger. I think he is a centre forward. I just don't think he's been used properly quite often before. But we need another guy, and I really feel like we'll go out and get it. What normally does happen, Michael Duff prefers kind of players, if you look at his signings previously, between 27 and 32-year-old. That's kind of what he looks at. He looks at guys that are going to be ready to go right now. That's kind of how he does it. Unfortunately, I don't think we have the money to be able to go out and do that. Especially when Devontae Cole's going to West Brom as he in Championship now. Like, it's very strange, that one. But we're going to have to gamble a little bit on a younger lad, I think, from on a loan, as the rumours are anyway. And once we do, I think our strikers are all right. And I'll be honest, Matt, at the end of last season, I thought I'd be saying that right now. I thought I'd be miles away from believing that. But under what kind of system he wants to play, I don't think we're that far off. And I don't think it'll be the reason why this season succeeds or fails.
Jonny, what do you reckon to our striking options?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said there, really. Out of the three you've mentioned, I think Joe Taylor excites me most just because he's scored 10 at League 2, 12 at League 1, or that might be the way around. So he's still 21, young. The links with Sorensen is a bonus, but I mean it's not everything. But I think for a lot of his age, you can see clear signs of improvement. So we could get him in for a year and see signs of improvement. You probably track him maybe 15 goals. I think that'd be absolutely fantastic for that striker. We're looking to kind of like come in and fill in around Healy. Bailey Cadamartri, a bit more of a gamble. Obviously, you spoke there, Matt, that you're a bit more close to him and seen him a bit in play. Again, I've said it a few times.
Not his best mate or anything, yeah, but
I've never seen him play. He's played a little bit recently. He's got 4 goals for Wednesday, but it's one of them that's a bit more of a gamble. Could fit the bill, but I don't know whether. I mean, I don't know whether, like saying what Killer said there, whether he's kind of Duff's kind of player. I'll throw a bit of a name out there, sentimental reasons, but absolute Torquay legend Jamie Reid scored 18 goals for Stevenage last year, just turned 30, Northern Ireland international. He'd be a great fit, power, pace, great finisher. If we could pick someone like him up for definitely no more than $500,000, he'd be a great fit for this team. Bit more of a kind of a Josh Koroma kind of feel to him. My only worry about Josh Koroma is he's not necessarily the most natural finisher. And I think that's only slight weakness. Otherwise, you could probably look to run with him. But someone's going to come in. And like Killer said, there's not necessarily a worry there, but someone will come in and kind of just add to those numbers because there is depth. Everyone's a little bit different. We've not even talked about Radilovic as well. Whether he'll stay or go, I don't know.
Killer's favourite.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not necessarily worried because someone will come in. It's just who. And I think the profile of player they're going for is absolutely bang on again. And if they can hit that profile with someone who's got a bit of League One experience and has been there and done it, like a Joe Taylor, then yeah, I'd be more than happy.
It seems a bit of a shame with Bojan, really, doesn't it? Because he came in with that sort of fanfare in January, having scored goals, and he is different, isn't he, to everyone else that we've got? And we talk about the sort of difference makers, and Bojan's really, really good at dropping into that 10 pocket, and especially if you have another striker up with him, he could be really deadly in feeding him through. And then when he gets in the box, he's a good finisher as well. We've seen he's a good finisher. It's just we're not entirely sure. We can only speculate what's happening there, why he didn't go to. I know that initially they said he wasn't injured, then they said he was injured, and I think he played for the B team against Borough on that day with Sheffield United. I think some people saw him limping in and out of the stadium, so he might have taken another knock again. But that's sort of the problem, isn't it, with Bojan? He doesn't feel rugged enough. Is that the right phrase for English football? He kind of feels a little bit not soft, but kind of, yeah, it just feels a little bit like it might be a little bit too aggressive for him. Maybe he's not aggressive enough to mix it. But I might be wrong. He might come out and start elbowing people left, right, centre and slotting goals, and it'd be bags of fun if he's the Spanish Alan Lee. We'd all love that, wouldn't we? But yeah. So in terms of that, let's take the tactics board down. Let's stop that nonsense, Matt. Right. So tactics talk, a little bit Marmite for a podcast is that for some people. So I do appreciate some people may have found that a little bit boring, and some people may have found it really fascinating. I suppose that depends what floats your boat. Right. Okay. So that's the end of part 3. Thanks to Killer and Jonny there. And we're going to be back quite shortly in part 4, where we'll have a look at the rest of the division and, of course, everybody else's predictions going into the new season. And we'll look forward to hearing back from you then.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, and they're the pride of the town. And the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.